Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the July 14th, 2025 council meeting. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge the District of Metchosin conducts its business on the Coast Salish territory and the traditional territory of the Sienna First Nations. We recognize the District of Metchosin that we work increasingly to be mindful of its commitments to be more inclusive in our governance with our neighbors. I'd like to acknowledge that the neighboring First Nations governments with whom we are committed to building stronger relationships, the Sienna and the Sooke, are all making important decisions at the same time that we are to better their communities and to be good neighbors, and we welcome that. Thank you. Now, council, before us, we have an agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Sooke. All in favor? Opposed? We forgot the pinks. So there's 3 correspondents to add those. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And public participation. We have 4 minutes per person to a maximum of 45 minutes. Should you wish to speak at the microphone, identify yourself and your road. Thank you.
Oh, do I? Oh, okay. Hi. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Eva Marie-Ann Dillon. I live at 4045 Saddleback Road, which has been my home in beautiful Metchosin for the last 31 years. We chose to build our home and move to Metchosin due to the beautiful natural landscapes and large rural properties. Our acreage has Douglas fir, arbutus, cedar, oak, and other trees and natural fauna, along with steep rock faces and elevated vistas. Metchosin is our home, and we love it here. I'm here today to thank the Metchosin Council and the Parks and Trails Committee for asking for public input, and appreciate the opportunity for residents to include comments and provide feedback before they update the Parks and Trails Master Plan. The Mount Metchosin subdivision was developed in the 1990s in the Saddleback, Hackmore, Stirrup, Highmount, and Ferncliff area. The subdivision was developed alongside approximately 400 acres of dense, undeveloped forest and meadowland known as Mount Metchosin, which is owned by the Olympic View Golf Course or Golf Club, and which is private property. It is my understanding that as part of the subdivision agreement approved by the Metchosin Council at that time, approximately 5% of the subdivision was allocated as park space between and alongside lots throughout the subdivision. We would like to propose that this allocated park space be designated as protected natural green space. No such designation is included in the current Parks and Trails Master Plan, and we ask that a new designation be added for this purpose. We are asking that the new master plan include this protected natural green space and that it be kept in its current natural state. It is our opinion, this green space is not conducive to the development or creation of trails of any kind, for a number of reasons, including steep cliffs, large boulders, rugged terrain, bedrock covered with thick mosses, numerous wildflowers, mushrooms, and other protected fauna, water courses that feed directly or indirectly into Bilson Creek, and undergrowth that helps prevent further erosion. Thick stands of Douglas fir, cedar, oak, arbutus, and other natural forest undergrowth. These forests will help maintain Metchosin's carbon footprint today and into the future. Fire risks are at an all-time high, particularly in Metchosin, where the wind and heavily treed acreages make them extremely susceptible to forest fires. Removal of dead branches, broom, and other invasive species should be promoted to help prevent the spread of forest fires, and we encourage residents of the Mount Metchosin neighborhood to take an active part and participate in fire smart programs, broom clearing, etc. We're so fortunate to live in Metchosin, where community residents have fought to maintain, preserve, and protect this unique rural community, including its forests, ALR land, and farmlands, its streams and meadows that are home to so many species of wildlife and fauna. The Friends of the Mount Metchosin neighborhood have submitted a more detailed letter to Council and the Parks and Trails Committee members, but I just wanted to personally thank you today for soliciting public input and participation. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is different. I'd like to speak to item 10A, John Rand's Taylor Road. If you proceed with 1A, then by this time next year, it will be the first time that you will find out whether you got a grant or not. And when you do that, then you're going to have to deal with a referendum, and that's going to probably be most efficient if you attach it to the October election. The problem with that is that it's going to be an election issue. It's going to be the #1 election issue in the election, and the volunteers and the chief are going to get caught right dead center in the middle of it, and that's really something that you should avoid. I know this because I was there. I've done that. Ed and I came up with a plan. You've got it in your agenda, and all it is intended to do is to provide an idea of what an alternative can look like. We're confident that the figures in there are in the ballpark, but essentially what we're saying is that you've got enough money in those two funds that you can build the administration building, and you can repair or do whatever you like with the apparatus bay and still have a lot of money left over. The advantage of that is that you're not going to, using existing money, is that you're not going to have to go to referendum. You can still apply for the grants, but you're not dependent on grants, which means that you could, if you wanted to, you could start the design process tomorrow, and you could have that building finished before the election. And as for the apparatus bay, that's a relatively new building, and it was designed and built to withstand whatever earthquakes we may face. So you really don't have to do anything with it. But if you wanted to, there would be ample money left over to upgrade it to the current standards. One thing I'm really going to advise you, however, is to stay away from putting concrete over the entire virtual acre that's out in that field there. There are just way too many problems that are going to be associated with that, not the least of which it's contrary to the OCP, the land use bylaw, and the village core plan. So, just like I said, you'll have more trouble than you can imagine if you leave it alone, if you don't leave it alone. But there's one thing that I would really kind of like to ask you to do, and that is take a serious consideration of the rescue training facility, rescue fire training facility that we have put in our plan there. It's something that the chief and I talked about for years when I was mayor, and I think that could be, this is on the Lombard property, of course, and that's something that I think could be just a real showcase for Metchosin. It would be of a benefit to not just Metchosin, but of all of the taxpayers on the Lower Island, where they could come here instead of having to go off the island for training. They could, I mean, it would provide a lot of goodwill towards Metchosin, which is not something to take lightly. Because it's such the broader base of interest in that is that it would be a grant magnet. You could include it in the grants for this thing, or you could, if you don't get the grants, then you could do it another year as a standalone. But the real advantage is that it'll help with volunteer recruitment and retention, but most importantly, it'll provide Metchosin with revenues instead of higher taxes. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
Patty Whitehouse, Rocky Point Road. I'm going to be very brief. When you were a very new council, I warned you about the dangers of going with 3-2 split decisions. I said that typically those are not good decisions. I think we're seeing one, having the response to one right now. If on something as important as the new fire hall, you can't all come to an agreement, then there's a real problem. A 3-2 decision is not going to serve the community.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to the mic?
I've even brought notes. My name is Ed Watson. I live on William Head Road, and I'm here to talk about the fire hall replacement project. My idea is to try to say something that will help you change course, because I think that's necessary, because the course you're embarking on, I think, actually changes fundamentally the governance of Metchosin. You don't all know me. My parents my grandparents came here in 1945. My parents followed shortly thereafter, raised me and two sisters. I came back after being married. My wife and I chose to come back here as a good place to raise our family, which we did. I have volunteered for Metchosin on a variety of topics. My late wife was a counselor, and my current wife was a CAO, so I have a pretty good idea of how governance in Metchosin has operated in the last while. And I think that it's always surrounded the idea of fiscal prudence and protecting the ALR. Those are two of the things that people talk about and have talked about for a long time. And let me pause for just a second, because I'm not opposed to replacing the old administration building at the fire hall. I remember when they laid blocks on that. So it's almost as old as me. And I know that at my age, I feel I'm going to fall over. I'm sure that building's feeling the same way. And I'm not really critical of the members of the Fire Hall Steering Committee, because they worked hard to come up with option number 1A, which I think is flawed, perhaps because of the terms of, the terms of reference, I guess, were perhaps clear enough. When I started with a bit of background, I talked about myself, and really I'm a bit irrelevant to this process, because most of my productive time in Metchosin's over. But there's a young woman sitting behind me there, happens to be my daughter-in-law. She's carrying a baby, and God willing, that baby is going to be raised here in Metchosin. I've got another son that has a couple of kids. He'd like to come back here and raise his family here, and he wants to do that because this is a good place to live. It's a rural community, and the basis of the fact that it hasn't been developed, we're surrounded by a tide of development. The reason it hasn't been developed is because councils over time haven't been able to manage expectations. And they've done that because they've said we can't borrow for stuff, and we're never going to take land out of the ALR. So those are the two underlying and significant foundational arguments in Metchosin, and you're breaking them both. You're taking land out of the ALR, and despite the fact you've had some people suggest that it's not worth anything, I think that's a crazy argument, because you can improve any land. And you're going into debt. You're actually going into a debt at a time when we should be saving money. You've got a guy in the States that wants to take the country over. The economy is going to go in the tank. You've got to build a new police station. There's so much more. And you want to spend money, borrow money for a fire hall. The idea of not borrowing and not taking land out of the ALR are foundational, fundamental principles that Metchosin was built on. I urge you, don't be the first council to change that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Joel Roper. I'm a resident of Metchosin, 661 Paris Road. I'm here today to express both my support for our dedicated firefighters and my concern about the current fire hall rebuild proposal. First, I'm going to give you some words from my wise wife, Judy, who wanted me to voice her thoughts on this forum. Yes, I agree that our fire hall needs an upgrade, but the plan being pushed forward right now has serious implications for the accessibility and overall functioning of our community space. Specifically, The current proposal would eliminate a large portion of the field that serves as vital parking for many of our most cherished community events: the Farmers Market, Mighty Metchosin Garage Sale, and Metchosin Day. As a parent, I rely on this accessible parking to safely bring my children to these events. And I know that many seniors also count on this area to participate fully in our community life. If we lose this space, we risk excluding a significant portion of Metchosin's residents. I understand that a second option, the Plan B, has been proposed. I urge Council to give this alternative and other alternatives serious consideration before making final decisions. We owe it both to our firefighters and our community to ensure that we've thoroughly explored all viable options for rebuild, including location and long-term community impact. I personally would add to this that as a business owner, I've been watching the world economy, and now is just not a good time to be going heavily in debt. Costs are rising across the board. Debt carried by our government is at an all-time high. And as a result, we can't expect handouts from government bodies when their finances are stretched thin. Operating a municipality in some ways is akin to operating a business. We need to manage our funds and avoid escalating losses, such as interest on large-scale loans. If we put ourselves at a high level of indebtedness, one of our only options to balance the scales would be to increase population density or dramatically increase property taxes. Money has to come from somewhere. If I was a part of this council, I would not want my lasting legacy to be the one that put us in debt. Of course, the safety of our residents is top priority. I would only ask that we explore all options before deciding what's truly best. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at the microphone?
I will. Need a little bit shorter here. So Nick Moss of Stephaine Road, and been resident in Metchosin most of my life. In terms of these proposals, it does worry me fiscally to enter into sort of a broadsheet, sort of greenfield type proposal to build and replace everything that we have. It seems to me that we need a pretty detailed explanation around what the seismic upgrade cost would be on the existing apparatus bay before we can truly consider whether we actually need a complete rebuild of everything. If we factor into the equation that there's 5,000 residents in Metchosin, which if you sort of calculate that there's 4 people per household roughly, we're asking 1,200 households or thereabouts to bear the burden of this entire fiscal rebuild of the fire hall. A percentage of those population then also enjoy the benefits of a farm designation. So their tax burden relative to the rest of us is relatively insignificant. So then now there's a subset of the 1,200 properties in Metchosin, perhaps around 900, who then have to bear the burden of whatever this expense will be. In terms of an expenditure, if we look at the View Royal Fire Hall, for example, that was a $7 to $8 million build, started in 2013. Statistics say that since 2013 to now, construction prices have doubled. So we're really looking at something akin to a $12 to $14 million build, the burden of which will ride on about 900 residents. I think it's irresponsible to move ahead with a greenfield proposal, and we need to look seriously at replacing the administrative building, which is substandard. That should be gone. I think it was designated as a bulldoze situation when the new fire hall was originally built, but never happened. So I'm not standing in the way of that at all. It needs to be addressed, but the apparatus bay needs to be reconsidered seriously for what we can do as a renovation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kiara Kahakawilla, Perry Crossroad resident. I wasn't sure I was going to speak tonight, so I don't have anything prepared, but I do have some notes that I want to touch on. First of all, you guys are in an enviable situation where you have 40 years of municipal government behind you. This municipality has, as you know, you had celebrated the birthday last year of this district being 40 years old. To discount the wisdom that comes from those 40 years would be a detriment to yourselves in this term. Most of you have sat around this table for 3 years. 2 of you have sat around the table for 7 years. Use the collective information that you have from years past to be able to help you make the decisions of today. Going into debt, if that is what is needed, then please, by all means, go ahead and do it in an appropriate form. But you have the option right now of exploring at least one plan B. You have the option of including that into your grant proposal. And as I pointed out the last time I spoke, that grant has basically about a 10-year life cycle, and they will be having 3 separate intakes. And just because we apply for the maximum amount, which is $7 million, it doesn't mean that we will get it. And if you take a look at the current project, when I spoke with the gentleman at UBCM about the grant and the program, it's based on merit as to whether or not you are fully funded or not. We have an apparatus bay which is not derelict by any stretch of the imagination. The administration building, on the other hand, no, it needs to go. That is also another position that you are in that is good for you. And the fact is that this community has already stated, I have not heard of one person say, please do not tear down that building and build our fire department and new administration building. So you have that going for you. So if you put forward a proposal where you ignore the fact that the apparatus bay is a relatively decent building and does need some upgrades, there's a possibility that when UBCM evaluates your grant application, are you really going to be given $7 million for the full project? The other thing I asked you about at the last meeting is what is your plan B? If you go ahead with 1A and that's all you present, what happens when you don't get that grant? How is this being paid for? These are all things that I have yet to hear discussed at this table, and maybe it's been discussed behind closed doors, but it hasn't been discussed here. And the residents of Metchosin are counting on you to continue the legacy of 40 years of council before you. This is not a small feat. Congratulations on recognizing the fact that you have an opportunity to start the project of a brand new fire hall. That is impressive. You have the grant available to you to start that process and to assist you with it. You have the $2.4 million in the Growing Communities grant sitting there waiting to be used for something like this. You are in a fabulous position to be able to take this project and elevate it to the next level and unite this community. Because as of right now, what I am hearing on the street is that you've got 2 factions. We need a brand new and shiny, or we don't need, or we just need to do this one way. And why would you want to do that? As has been pointed out by Patty, a 3-2 vote is not a way to move forward on something this big and something this important. Take a step back. This is 1 intake for this grant project. There was 3 intakes on the previous 10 million or previous 10-year project that were 10 million agreement between the federal government and UBCM. And when I spoke to them, they are planning on administering this over 10 years. And just because you're sitting here today doesn't mean that what you do isn't important for the next council. You are setting the building blocks. As I said at the last meeting, do not use the Metchosin Volunteer Fire Department as a wedge. Use it as a building block. It is an amazing organization with fantastic volunteers led by an extremely capable fire chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak in the microphone?
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name is Jackie Larkin. I live at 4856 Jelinek Place. And I don't very often come to council meetings. I think I kind of trust the folks here to do a good job and to really take things seriously and consider them. And I have a lot of other things on my plate. So I don't usually come, but this time I thought it was important to come because I think this decision around the fire hall has huge implications, as a number of the other speakers have said. And in a time when I think we all know how challenging social relations are in this world that we live in. So there's like maybe 30 of us in the room, maybe 50, I don't know. So there's 4,950 members of Metchosin who, believe me, I believe, would weigh in on an issue that requires us to go millions of dollars into debt without the most serious, not only consideration by the council, but by the community as a whole. So my questions to you are, a couple of them. First of all, what is your position on the different options? If you chose one option, why did you reject the other option? What other options could be on the table? What are ways in which, what are the questions that you would like to ask of this community so that you could get their input. I mean, if there was any reason to ask, I know the first speaker tonight spoke to the importance of getting input on trails and the way we want to go forward with the land, which of course is wonderful, and we should get that input. But if we're going to spend millions of dollars into debt, we deserve to have input on that too, and we deserve to have that input in a serious and well-prepared way by council, which actually outlines the options and the risks and what it's going to mean for us. So I really urge you to consider how easily this issue could become polarizing in a world where rumors and speculation run rife and people stop listening to one another, and we don't want that to happen. So I urge you to either reconsider where you're going or to at least have a good public discussion about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening? Okay, Kel.
Hi, I'm Erin Vandewater, 4206 Bilston Place. I just wanted to voice my concerns with the current proposal and really encourage you to explore other options. I think going into debt would be a big mistake. And I also think removing land from the ALR is a big mistake. Lots to consider here. I haven't heard a lot of support for the proposal, and I'm just curious the reasoning behind why you're so focused on this proposal. Anything else? I wasn't really prepared to speak either, so I think that's probably most of what I wanted to say. I just want to use that, so thanks.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close public participation and move on to our agenda. So council, on page 5, we have the regular council meeting of June 16th minutes for adoption.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Sooke, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the special council meeting minutes from June 30th on page 13.
I'll move adoption. I just had a question though, and that was in relation to item 5D. And we did have some discussion about the paving on Metchosin Road. And I recall some of council were talking about including paving for bike lanes. And is that an action for staff, or are we going to put that to the side?
Yep, as far as I can remember, there was no council resolution, but staff was asked to talk to the contractor about that. It wasn't all along Metchosin Road, it was on Metchosin Road between Briar Lane and almost at Pelican.
Great, so I just didn't want to give up that opportunity. I know there was a view that we should in fact have the contractor look at that. I didn't want to miss the opportunity.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor M. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And then we have the receipt of minutes on page 17. This is the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee meeting of June 17th. Councillor Sooke.
Sure. Move adoption or move receipt of the minutes.
Okay, move receipt by Councillor Sooke, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have receipt of the Community Planning Committee meeting of June 23rd, 2025. Councillor Sooke.
Thanks, Madam. I would just move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Sooke, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the Healthy Communities Advisory Select Committee meeting minutes for consideration. Councillor Epp.
Move receipt.
Move receipt. Seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then Councillor Gray, we have the Environmental Advisory Select Committee meeting on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the special public Works and Protective Services on page 33. Councillor Epp.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Okay. Moving along to my mayor's report, as is customary. I have a written report, one council meeting, and a verbal update at the other meeting. In addition to all the additional municipal meetings and the CRD meetings, I was able to attend the Camosun College School of Business convocation. This was just this last month. Received an invitation from the president and the vice chair. It was a great day, great celebration, and special congratulations go out to the West Shore graduates and some from Metchosin. It's nice to see. The CRD Salspring Island Local Community Commission is now 2 years old. The commission was established in 2023 following a Salt Spring Island referendum that supported the formation of the local community commission. I was invited as vice chair of the CRD to attend their celebrations. It was a marvelous day for a ferry ride to Salt Spring Island, and they were delighted that we were able to attend. I had the wonderful opportunity to meet with our newly elected MP, Stephaine Maclean. This was on July 8th. She came here for tea. She highlighted the federal government's Canada Pass program. So this summer, from June 30th to September 2nd, Canadian residents can enjoy free or discounted admission to explore the richness of our parks. So there's a link in the agenda where you can go for more information. Minister Maclean expressed an interest in addressing our community in the future, and I said absolutely, and that she's always welcome. I talked to her, of course, about our priorities, and I talked about our aging fire hall and the issues that we are facing there. And she said she would help out any way she can. I actually saw her on Sunday at a social event, and she said she's already advocating with some of her colleagues in Ottawa regarding aging infrastructure in the south end of Vancouver Island. So that was good news. Pride in Metchosin. So on June 27th, the District of Metchosin raised the Pride flag. This was the third consecutive year. And we were all really happy to attend the celebration. The flag represents kindness, inclusivity, diversity, and acceptance. Many community members were able to join us for cake and for the celebrations. CFB Commander, Esquimalt-based Logistics Officer Matthew Hardy, West Shore RCMP Corporal Cole Brewer, William Head Warden Trent Mitchell all spoke at our event. Our firefighters were well represented, and I was joined by Councillor Epp, Sooke, and Gray. So thank you for that. And on July 6th, I participated in the Victoria Pride Parade. That was my third year. It was a wonderful, joyful event, something out of the ordinary. It was a really fun day. And I was riding on the CRD float as vice chair of the CRD board. Sooke First Nation and the CRD. So members of the CRD executive leadership team, staff, CRD board chair McNeil Smith and I were invited to the Sooke First Nation for a working lunch and government-to-government discussions on July 4th. Chief Larry Underwood and Councillors Bonnie Hill and Deborah Lazar were most gracious in their welcoming of us. We had very respectful conversations about some difficult areas, but they were respectful and forthright. They reminded us of their vision, which includes asserting the Sooke rights to their territory and to respect, protect, and promote the nation's heritage, culture, and traditions. We discussed land use, areas for spiritual, traditional ceremonies, archaeological and cultural heritage, water supply preservation. I was honored to attend and to participate and to listen to the Sooke First Nation requests and concerns. And then finally, at the CRD board, we had, I was able to participate in the WSANIC awareness learning. Board directors and alternate directors were invited to the WSANIC awareness learning session on June 20th. Traditional songs and dances by the WSANIC youth drummers opened the meeting, followed by a summary of the WSANIC territory and the history. The WSANIC ways of life and legends were told, followed by examples of colonization and racism. It was a very reflective morning, and we heard many perspectives that I had not previously been exposed to. So many thanks go to Eric Pelkey, the hereditary chief of the South, and the community engagement coordinator of the WSANIC Leadership Council and his group for providing this cultural awareness and learning session. So all of this is CRD's board's commitment to reconciliation. So we've been able, as the chair and vice chair and the executive leadership team, to have conversations, government-to-government relation meetings, memorandums of understanding with many of the First Nations on the south end of Vancouver Island, including our neighbor Shiano, where we negotiated a bulk water contract with the Sartlet Nation. We've had discussions with Esquimalt, Sooke, members of the WSANIC leadership, and their groups out on the peninsula. So that's been really interesting and very successful. Okay, let's move along to business arising, starting on page 39 of your council agenda. Councillor Sooke.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. This motion comes from the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee, and it comes and it is a request to look at options to manage roadside parking in key areas within the village, notably the corner on Happy Valley around Rocky Point, and also the corner past, or sorry, not the corner, the stretch past the community hall on William Head Road. Those are two areas when you're looking at this motion to keep in mind. We receive feedback from residents, particularly on the William Head side, that when we have large events, cars are often parked there. It is a narrow stretch and it forces you onto a very narrow part of the road. So hearing that input, what I'd taken to do when we have big events is to pylon that area off. It seems to have been effective, but the request here is that we explore more permanent markers and barriers to parking there. And again, particularly as well on Happy Valley and Rocky Point Road. So that's some of the context of this. And I will, just to keep things moving, if you don't mind, I'll make the motion.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I would move that council direct staff to explore options to manage roadside parking infringing on trails and other busy roadway areas to address safety issues, perhaps consider within the active transportation network plan project in the village core. Options could include delineators and no parking signs. So moved.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Sooke. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Epp. Further discussion? No? Councillor Epp?
I know I think there are areas that we do need to look at. The areas that he's referring to are getting busier and busier, especially on weekends and on event occasions. So and some areas that we probably do need to allow parking, but then others I think we really need to consider the safety of residents trying to walk or navigate around those areas.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. Yes, we have had significant issues since, I know 2015, I brought it to council with lack of safe passage with roadside trails just in the core. When you find yourself on a draft horse going down the middle of the street because everybody's parked on where was a trail, we put a lot of money into our roadside trails for pedestrian traffic, for safe passage, and then we fill in ditches to expand that and people still park on them, so people aren't looking at the signs. No parking signs don't work. Anything that says towway is not enforced. So we've been at this table, or I've actually been in this room watching councils of the past discuss this over and over. Whether we put boulders out or curbs or delineators or whatever, a number of different things, and nothing has ever come to fruition. Just build more trails so we have more parking. We've heard in this term at least numerous letters, and one recently from a neighbor on William Head Road with pictures attached as to how they've dealt with it in their own neighborhoods. So during the last budget deliberations, I contacted colleagues of mine in Colwood, and many of the municipalities in this GVRD are putting in a lot of different bike lanes and that sort of thing. So I'm not suggesting that, but they do have very low cement barriers. So I did get a quote of some work that had been done on Painter Road, and I have circulated that this last spring with all of you. And again, recently, as an idea, we decided not to put it into the budget. I thought we had, but we decided to forego it and wait till an active transportation plan this fall and do it as a pilot project. They're not permanent, they can be moved, but it is an idea to put them out there. We can still, if they do stay and are successful, we still can use the snow plows, water drains underneath them. It allows enough space so that safe passage for walkers, cyclists, strollers, people with different abilities, being away from traffic on those times that we have the multitude of events that we are having in our community. It's not just summer months. So I do support exploring this further and finding out a cost and maybe doing a pilot and seeing if that does help with our residents' safe passage.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak?
Sure, thanks. I'm good with the motion as well, except I hope that staff would recognize that we have a contract right now with on our active transportation network plan. I think $75,000. They're doing a plan for us here in the village core, and I would hope that we would simply turn to them and ask for their advice on how to move forward. For me, I get the safety issue, but I am concerned if we do move forward, as we've heard from some people in the audience this evening, with removing a big chunk of parking. Well, I'm not totally sure where people are going to be parking in the end. So I get the point of getting this incorporated into the village center work that the Active Transportation Network project is conducting at the moment.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thanks. Okay, we've got some reports for action starting on page 41. We've got the permissive tax exemptions. There is a recommendation here. If I could ask Jeffrey Creek, our Chief Financial Officer, to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is a report on permissive tax exemptions, requesting that, or recommending that Council adopt the policy for permissive tax exemptions. The district has not had one previously, so when people would request one, they send in a letter, Council would debate, say yes or no, and then it would just kind of move on and be carried over year after year without much debate. So I'm putting this in place just to get some more information from everybody that's receiving one, because it is costing the taxpayers here a decent amount of money. In 2025, there were exemptions on $21.7 million worth of property. Total tax savings for those properties came up to $176,000, 93,000 of which was due to the district itself. The rest was to all the other taxing authorities, the BC Transit, the school, hospital, CRD, that type of thing. And so that ended up increasing everybody's taxes here by $44.10 on residential property. I've got a table there showing the different classes. So there's class 1, class 6, and class 8 that all received exemptions. What I'd be looking for in an application. So financial statements for the last 3 years, copy of the registered charity or not-for-profit information return from the previous year, description of how they're using the land, if any third parties are using it and for what purpose, how much money are they making from that, and the purpose of the organization and benefit for the community. hoping that aligns with the strategic priorities of council. And then some additional things that council can consider is whether to put a cap on permissive tax exemptions. A number of municipalities around BC have attached it to, say, 1% or 5% of total revenue, and then also restricting exemptions to only municipal-owned properties, or totally discontinuing permissive tax exemptions and solely giving out grants. So right now, the council itself provides $5,000 of grants and aid, bumped it up to $6,000 to provide some additional funding to the youth parliament this year. But if we were to give a grant to everybody that received a tax exemption, right, it would be $176,000 plus 5. So it's quite a bit of money. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was well aware of what this is costing the district. But any questions?
Okay, Councillor Sooke, go ahead.
So through you, Mayor Little. Mr. Creek, thank you very much. As much as I've been attentive to council proceedings, even before I was at the seat, I've never seen a close look like this at something we sort of take for granted. So thank you very much. But I just have to be clear, and if you could, sorry, I'm being a dumb guy here, but the total tax savings of $167,980, like from the 2025 grants, of this $93,053 were related to the district's portion. So I think in the simplest terms, that's just money we don't collect because we've given that exemption. Is that correct?
So through the chair, well, we don't collect it from those properties. So we end up putting that on everybody else. So all of their taxes end up going up. And that's where the average resident property ended up paying $44 more this year because of everybody, those few properties getting exemptions.
Thank you. It's very clear.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Creek, for this this document. I appreciate the balanced approach that you put together here. I just have two questions. The minor one on page 43, where it talks about the deadline being August 15th to support this transition. Would we be extending that, since how this was presented about a month ago, or are we going to stay with that being just a month from now?
Through the chair, I can maybe push it another week. I've already received 2 applications actually, so we've started the process already.
Okay, great.
Ball's going. But, there's a little bit of wiggle room. It really comes down to, got to present that to council. They have to approve this bylaw. So there's 2 different council meetings that has to be done. It all has to be sent to BC assessment before the end of October. That's where we get kind of a tight timeline.
Okay, so the question that I have that is more at the forefront for me is as far as importance. In the policy, you've got written here into 1, registration of a covenant restricting the use of the property. If the organization, because they're not persons, they're organizations of people and properties, if they were successful in being approved for an exemption, 1 year, 2 year, whatever length of term, if at one point in time in the future they chose not to, does the covenant stay on the property, or does it leave with the exemption?
Through the chair, my experience, it would be removed after they've stopped receiving the exemption. So that we'd hold it, and then if they said, we don't need your tax exemption anymore, we want to move on, we'd remove the covenant, and then they can go back to doing what they want.
Okay, and is that written in the policy? Sorry,
I don't think I explicitly wrote up to say it would be removed. But.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Councillor Gray.
Sure. Thanks very much. Thanks, Mr. Creek, for putting this together, and thanks for taking some of the edits that I sent into you. This got on our agenda initially because I was interested in the question of particularly organizations that have large parcels of natural land and then land in a natural state. Was there anything we might do in terms of keeping the wild spaces wild? And so I think you've got it here now in terms of, well, we have an example, I guess, on the list of groups. we've given a tax exemption to the BC Parks Foundation for a parcel of land that they're keeping as a natural preserve. And now we have the criteria to do it, so that's great. My guess, what I'm wondering about is, when I appreciate we simplified the application as well. I had a couple of questions. One was to do with the documentation needed, and I wondered if some of the material might be where applicable. I guess it was actually under the eligibility criteria. Eligibility criteria 6 says that the property must provide benefits and accessibility to the residents of the district of Metchosin. And I wondered if we might change that to provide benefits and accessibility where applicable to the residents of the district of Metchosin. So some land that, let's say, is kept as a nature reserve, we're not really wanting to promote accessibility. We've had that discussion about property that we own ourselves, the buffer land. But this is about some areas that the BC Parks Foundation has been involved in. I think at the last meeting you were praising the Parks Foundation for the work they've done in the Metchosin Foundation. So I'm just thinking about that change there. Would that be reasonable through the chair?
Through the chair? Yeah, no, that's easy enough to make. You could say provide benefits and or accessibility.
Thank you. The other question I had was in relation to, not maybe for tonight, but just to say to council, that the other thing that I'm interested in is if we were to, have the idea of promoting biodiversity, protection of natural lands, and those kinds of things. And I've been in conversation with Mr. Creek about the notion of landowners, in other words, private landowners who take a piece of their property and put a covenant on it to protect it, whether we might entertain a tax relief for that area. That would require, according to what I've been able to research, a partnership agreement with the district that the covenant holder is providing some protection of, say, a natural asset that's important to the district, say, preventing flooding or something like that. And I just wondered if the council would provide permission for Mr. Creek to work a little bit further with our planner on that question. To see, not to go with what we've got here, but take another look at the next steps to see what we might do about promoting the protection of more land in Metchosin through tax exemption possibilities.
Yeah, so that's outside of the scope of this. So why don't we deal with this, and then we'll deal with your question afterwards.
Thank you.
Councillor Sooke.
Oh, sorry.
Just going to say I'd appreciate the work on this. And like Councillor Sooke, I had no idea that our taxpayers were paying that much to support these exemptions. And I think it will be a really good idea in the future to look at them each individually more in depth. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the report. I would be in favor. I really appreciate the policy. We've never had one before, so this is wonderful. I actually am in favor of capping the total tax exemption and perhaps giving them an exemption for the municipal portion and not the others, because like you say, the rest of the tax bill for the schools, library, CRD, all of that, the rest of the taxpayers are paying their portion of. And I think it'd be probably more fair and equitable if we gave them an exemption for the municipal portion of the tax. So I would be in favor of that to coincide with this policy. Yeah, Councillor Sooke.
Thank you, Mayor Little, through you, and it's sort of along the lines you're talking about her. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about the options that you've seen with other municipalities. Again, capping total exemptions as a percentage of municipal tax revenue, or restricting exemptions to municipally owned property, or discontinuing permissive tax exemptions and offering grants to offset only the municipal portion of the taxes. So any further insight, I've just thrown all three at you, but any insight into those three? Okay, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, finish up.
But I think that if you look at the policy again, The policy does allow for some optionality. It looks to me like mostly the policy is about who can apply, what you have to do. But there's some things after the policy that council can determine. Am I reading that properly?
Through the chair? Correct. Yeah, so the policy really just sets, here's what you have to provide, and this is what we're gonna kind of base it on. But whether we come back with, here's a cap, so I just take in all the applications, review all the information, and I can come back and say, hey, if we want to cap it at 2% of total revenue, here's what you'd end up giving to each of these organizations. If we wanted to just cap it at just the district portion, this is what that's going to end up costing. If we wanted to remove everybody and just say, no, we're just going to do it on municipal properties, I can do that as well. So we'll come back, once I've reviewed all the applications, I can throw that into the next report and do a comparison.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, so there is a recommendation here that council adopt the permissive tax exemption policy F100.60. Moved by Councillor Sooke, second by Councillor Donaldson. Any other comments or concerns? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Thank you very much. And we've got reports for information next. We have,
Excuse me.
oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
We're
so my
going to talk
request
about this other issue. Yes.
was
indeed.
simply to get a look at it, and maybe it can just be done as part of the review that's ongoing here and get a sense of what else might be possible.
Yeah, so the Bilston Creek watershed have talked about some tax exemptions for property owners along the creek who are doing exemplary job at protecting the creek, removing invasive species. So that's a particular example. I say that I would be in favor of that, but I think this council at some point, we need to also talk about economic sustainability, what we're going to do to bring more revenue into the district, because we're very good at spending money, and the tax exemptions is an example of that. So I would be in favor. I don't think it would be very many property owners along Bilston Creek, for instance, but I don't know what else you had in mind.
Well, that's about right. Just to get a sense, as we are tonight, getting a sense of this bigger picture, to get a sense of what's possible in that realm.
Okay. Does anybody want to speak to this greater sense? Okay, perhaps we'll think about it, and people can get
I'll
back
talk
to you with their
to Mr. Creek
individual
about it.
comments. Okay, moving along to page 53. Mr. Creek, we have the financial report for the second quarter of 2025. Go ahead, thank you.
Thank you to the chair. So here is the report for the second quarter of 2025, just going over the revenue, expenditures, and capital projects that have been going on. As per the last report, first quarter was pretty slow with revenue and a few significant expenses like insurance, software, facility repairs. And now we've fallen into the second quarter, so we've started collecting our taxes. Money's coming in there. We're still waiting for the federal government to remit their payment in lieu, and that'll be the last big chunk. As for other revenues, our building permit revenue is significantly higher this year. Per the building report later on in this agenda, we collected more in the month of June than we did all of last year. And we should be getting a few more from a couple other big projects in the district. School rental revenues continue to perform well, driven by pickleball and additional gym and classroom rentals. So I threw in a little chart there to kind of show the first 6 months of the last 5 years, maybe 6 years now, and the steady growth thanks to the completion of the gym renovations. Expenses. So the only council expense that was really over budget was UBCM and AVIC dues. That was higher increase than I was expecting with the inflation rate, but shouldn't have anything else popping in there for the rest of the year. Administratively, QP wages are higher than budget. We had a one-time pay adjustment to align compensation with regional benchmarks. So this included retroactive pay to the beginning of the year. This also impacted the bylaw and public works departments. The fire department, first responder equipment costs were up and above budget. This is due to increased medical calls and inflation-related price increases on those supplies. For the planning department, contracting expenses are over budget, but are expected to be offset by related permit revenues, as we can see with the building permits coming in. Legal and advertising are also over budget due to the public hearings and related notices, and then receiving legal advice on a number of planning work projects as well. Public Works, the only thing that really showed up as being over budget was mostly due to timing, was for aerial brushing. Looks like they've completed everything by the end of June, so we should be under budget overall, as long as we don't have any emergency aerial brushing popping up for the rest of the year. For the school, material expenses were over budget. We purchased 2 AED machines for there. Those were pretty pricey. But overall, revenue expenses looking pretty good for the first half of the year. A few items we're going to keep an eye on, but nothing that's going to throw off our financial plan. For capital, so a number of projects were completed. One, Municipal Hall roof here, completed at the end of May. Nothing shows up because we didn't get the bill by the end of June, but that'll show up in there. Municipal server, that's completed and under budget. That helped alleviate a number of space constraints and addresses obsolescence with our software. Fire equipment, so a number of pieces have been purchased under budget. Probably some more to come in the second half. The museum ramp, that was completed by the volunteers over there. So we received a grant from Spark BC that helped pay for the good chunk of that. And then the bus shelter and bike rack over on Happy Valley Road here was stained and refinished by the Public Works Department. In progress, so we've got road work going on. We just had the tenders approved. They should be starting work in the next couple of weeks. And then the community house parking lot should also be commencing shortly. That'll be done again with another part of the Spark BC grant. And so looking ahead, school revenues are going to be down here in July and August. Everything kind of slowed down. There's not a lot of training going on. Even pickleball has slowed down, shockingly. But we should be seeing another increase in building permits. Operating expenses, because a number of staff going off on vacation, like public works, admin, that type of thing, should be a little bit lower. Utility costs go down, don't have to use as much natural gas to heat anything anymore. And then I didn't put it in, but because of the fire hall, that's going to be where we're going to see some increased costs because of the work safe regulations type of thing. So cleaning up all the rat excrement, dealing with the office ventilation and exhaust extraction systems. It's going to be quite expensive. Might need to come back to do a financial plan amendment for those, depending on what we get billed and the timing of it, if it happens in 2025 or early 2026. But that's pretty much all. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions for the second quarter financial statements? Mr. Gray.
No questions particularly, but a comment. Thanks very much for the report through the chair, Mr. Creek, and also just to note my appreciation for the change in the wages of our staff, such that they now align with the regional benchmarks.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Sooke.
Just a quick thank you to Mr. Creek. Nicely explained, and I like the new spreadsheet, the new software. It seems like it's filling out kind of every single time we see it.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's working out quite well right now.
Great.
Excellent job. Anybody else?
I'll move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Epp. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Creek. Okay. Next we have repairs to the Flesh Road Bridge. This is from Bob.
Excuse me. I may recuse myself, please. Due to the fact that this topic is in my neighborhood, I don't wish to be perceived having a possible conflict of interest.
Sure, my office is open. Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Payette, our CAO, we have a report on repairs to the Flesh Road Bridge, RFP.
Okay, thanks through the chair. This is a report to bring to council for information on one of our capital projects that we're working away on, the Flesh Road Bridge. I have a quote from Herald Engineering to move along with the more detailed designing of remediating the bridge so that we can put that out to an RFP to get what I would call a fulsome costing of the remediation of the bridge. So give council a better idea of the cost. At this point, I would suggest this will probably end up being a 2026 budget item, given that we're pretty much through the summer and getting close to the fall. I don't see this getting done this year, but for sure we can get the RFP done and can have another discussion about the costs in the 2026 budget. And so this is for remediation of the bridge. It's not for deactivation of the bridge. To get a deactivation of the bridge option would be an additional quote from Harold. And just to remind council, deactivation of the bridge would also include dealing with the water and gas lines, which would be a cost to the municipality to alter those services. And our current budget is $142,000. The quote is around 10% of that budget amount, so well within the budget so far. Questions?
Okay, questions, council? We've got some information before you. Do you have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Well, I'm just really unclear about the process that we're following. As the briefing note says, we voted on getting an RFP on 3 options: deactivation, that's to say removal of the bridge; remediation, that would allow equestrian, pedestrian cycling on the bridge; and then design remediation for vehicular travel. And now we're looking at a remediation only a topic. So it seems to me that we've been through this a few times, and it's not very satisfactory. In 2022, we got a Class C cost estimates from Herald Engineering. I gather Class C means they're reasonably accurate without full design. And those estimates are meant to be used for as minus in a go, no-go decision. In other words, you choose between your options, and then you jump to the next stage, which is to get the design that we're talking about now. So we're still at the stage where we're talking about 3 options and being asked now to commit money for one of the options. I don't fully understand that.
CEO Payette.
Yeah, so the RFP would be to get the best. The discussion previously was that the quotes were changing over the years since, I don't know, maybe 2010. So the idea was to get as the design engineering from Herald to give the best specifications for an RFP process. That would give us a very good understanding of the cost to remediate the bridge, direct from the construction companies. So that would be the answer to the first part of the question. The second part of the question is option 2, which is to decommission the bridge. So that option is still on the table. I just want to discuss with council the fact that deactivating the bridge would also include the gas and water lines that are currently running under the bridge that would have to be engineered. And if the bridge isn't there, there would have to be some way of maintaining that service for the residents. That process and the engineering process would be quite a bit more costly and would be an additional quote from Herald. So if council still wants to proceed with that, I would have to get that done.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, I might differ a little bit in the sense that the quotes were changing only in that they were increasing in cost each time we got them, but the relative value between them hadn't changed much. The I mean, council's been provided all these documents along the way, And I think the last ones said that December 2022 repair remediation might cost us $210,000, total deactivation $99,000, and pedestrian and cyclist use $44,000. Then we might add to that the water line and gas line costs, and the numbers climb. Total repair and remediation 240, total deactivation now becomes higher, 270, and pedestrian cyclist use 44,000. And so they haven't jumped around, they've just increased in value with each note that we've gotten over the time we've been here. So after the last meeting, and I talked this in a note to Mr. Pyatt today about this, I said, you know, at the last meeting, we stuck with 3 options, you know, to go to an RFP, and I thought that would lead to some cost escalation. But we proceeded anyway, and we proceeded on the argument that Mayor Little, I think you'd said that at incorporation, the district assumed obligations to cover all the utility costs under the bridges. And I sent a note to Mr. Pyatt saying, could I get a copy of whatever was written at the time? Because it would be good to know if we're actually responsible or not. And then Mr. Pyatt had offered in the meeting that there was an agreement between the district and the gas utility. So I said, well, great, could we share that with the council too? Both of those might help us sort out this question of, are we responsible for the higher cost of removing the gas and the water line? My thinking being that if there are no documents at all, then we would seek legal advice as to who would typically be responsible. We don't have any documents, I think, except a note from our previous engineer saying when he talked to the CRD on the phone and Fortis, they said, no, you guys covered that. I'd like, given that these are tens of thousands of dollars, I'd like to know, as a matter of fact, are we responsible for them? So I think jumping to remediation now because the costs are too high for removal, I don't buy that without the information in front of us. So we could now hire Herald Engineering to do this work, but I think we probably should drop back to their previous Class C cost estimates and choose what do we want to do? Remediate, remove, or not? It just seems like we're going in a bit of a circle and going to spend some more money when maybe we don't need to be doing that. We do need the answer, of course. Are we responsible or not for the water line and the gas line costs? And we haven't run that to the ground yet, to my satisfaction.
Okay. Councillor Sooke.
Through you, Mayor Little. Mr. Pyatt, where are you in terms of your confidence in terms of the responsibility that the district has for the water and gas line? So that's one question, but further to Councillor Gray's point, what other additional confidence can you give us that that is indeed the case?
Okay, so, and maybe another comment is that we wouldn't be removing the utility services. Those would be staying. We would have to re-engineer the access some way, either directional drilling under the creek or rerouting the services. We wouldn't be removing those services. Potentially the water service could be capped, but then that's a loop service, so could have an effect on the water system. The other part is our operating agreement specifically says that we are responsible for any alterations to those utility services. And we have correspondence from 2010 from successive CAOs and emails that clearly establish that. So I don't know what else to say. Councillor Gray or any councillor is welcome to come to the office and have a look at the agreements.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I've just got the email here saying that you agreed with me and the cost of decommissioning was significant and we pulled together some information, and we haven't seen that at the council table yet.
No, you haven't, but you're welcome to come into the office and look at that contract. Councillor Ebb?
Well, I don't believe removing the bridge entirely makes much sense, but I would like to know the difference between remediating the bridge for the pedestrian cycling traffic as opposed to remediating it for vehicular traffic as well.
Yeah, so my understanding from the engineering reports is that the bridge itself is sound and structurally sound. It's the abutments to the bridge that need to be maintained. So each end of the bridge, that as it marries up to the side of the creek, that's the area that needs to be maintained properly. The bridge itself is structurally sound for its current use, which is vehicle, pedestrian, equestrian. So that would be maintained. Thank you.
Councillor Epp, do you have an additional question? Councillor Sooke.
So through you, Mayor Little, we've seen the bridge. I think we've all been there, but we have not seen it with collectively and with the perspective of an engineer. And I'm wondering if a site visit, especially now that the water is low, might be a good idea for us. Mm-hmm. And again, if there is an issue with the abutment, one of the things we have to be incredibly conscious of now is we are subject to extreme weather. We've been lucky this summer, had some storms this winter, but we're just months away from another extreme event, or years away, if you will. So I think that's something we have to address as well. Again, just to remind folks that when the earlier reports we got, deactivation was the most expensive option, and we ended up with nothing, not even a pedestrian bridge, essentially. Having read the correspondence, Ms. Hansen provided a package for us, and it came up again and again, and there didn't seem to be any doubt within, the CIOs of the past that responsibility for the water and gas line, when it came up, was the district's responsibility. So I would move that we ask Mr. Payette to organize a site visit accompanied by a representative from Herald Engineering.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Sooke and seconded by, does anybody want to second that? I'll second that first for discussion. Go ahead.
I just think it would be great to see the bridge and hear firsthand what issues with the abutment there are and how serious they are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Gray.
I'm open to a site visit. I'm just reflecting on a letter we received on March 3rd, 2025 from 15 residents asking us to be more careful as we go through these sort of financial issues. And this one was in reference to the Flesh Road Bridge. Documents a lot of things that we were up to. But one of the recommendations that the municipal engineer should be included in any review and hands-on management of complex infrastructure projects and the preparation of related staff reports. That's been the practice in the past. So I'd ask that the municipal engineer join us on the site visit.
Shouldn't be a problem. Councillor Epp, do you have any objections to a site visit? No. Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Back to the repairs of the Flesh Road Bridge. So I'm with Councillor Epp that I don't think removal of the bridge is in the best interest of the community. If we deactivate the bridge for everyone, then it's sitting there just for the utilities. If we were to move it completely, of course, we would be left with how are we going to get those utilities across the creek, and it would involve perhaps tunneling, which I don't think is a very safe option. It's safe the way they are, as long as the bridge is remediated. And as CAO Payette mentioned, the surface of the bridge is still good. The rails need to be adjusted. That's not a big problem, but it's the abutments area, and they are deteriorating with time. And of course, costs go up over time. Costs rarely go down over time, but definitely the the bridge is deteriorating over time. So I would be in favor of remediation of the bridge for sure. Councillor Gray, go ahead.
Is there a motion on the table?
There isn't, but there could be. Does anybody want to provide a motion? Councillor Gray. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, I move the council receive the report repairs to Flesh Road Bridge, RFP, ECP for information.
Second.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Sooke. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Okay, on page 97, we have the District of Metchosin Public Communication Reports. This is reports that come into the district regarding land use complaints, roads, plowing. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with this? If not, I'll take a motion to receive.
Move receipt.
Oh, sorry. Come back. Forgot about you. Thank you. Patty. Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Sooke. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. My apologies, Councillor Donaldson. And we have the Metchosin Building Inspection Department, the permit revenue to date. On the next page, moved by Councillor Sooke, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? Questions? Good to see the revenue. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then next we have the District of Metchosin bylaw enforcement summary. So we have lots of complaints, lots of enforcement of the bylaws. So we do enforce our bylaws, and this is testament to that. No specifics are given except for the type of bylaw and the month. Okay, I'll take a motion to receive. Moved by Councillor Sooke, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so on page 105, we have a correspondence from the City of Port Moody. This is the resolution for UBCM supporting housing affordability through taxations. They're not asking us for anything in particular. They're wanting us to be aware that they want UBCM to advocate to the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs and the BC Assessment Authority to support housing affordability through taxation changes and financial commitment by undertaking a number of different items. Okay. Councillor Sooke.
Just thanks to the City of Port Moody for an intriguing read. So.
Okay, is that a motion to receive?
Yes.
Yeah, moved by Councillor Sooke, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Right. And next we have communication from the District of Coldstream from their CAO. This is regarding another UBCM request to the province of BC to undertake a comprehensive review and modernization of the municipal wastewater regulation and sewage system regulation to ensure alignment and with current environmental pressures, technological advancements, and land use planning needs.
Receipt.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. Doesn't really pertain to Metchosin, but it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds at the conference in September. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Great. And then we have a letter from Prime Corps Budget. I have not seen user service fee updates from this corporation. I'm just wondering if CFO Creek can just give us a Coles Notes version of what this is all about.
Thank you, through the chair. So Prime Corps was operating with Ecom 911, which we are now a party to because of the recent download from the province. And so Prime Corps is responsible for operating and maintaining the computer system that holds all of the records of police calls in throughout BC. They're now breaking away from Ecom because of a change in Ecom's management agreement, and so they don't no longer align. So now they've come up with this new cost. I guess there's maybe a chance that our Ecom bill would drop by $1,500 because Ecom is no longer paying Prime Core directly, and we're now having to do it. But I'll say that's unlikely because that's how it goes. So we'd be looking at $1 a person for residential properties. Now, thankfully, the Ecom bill has been less than what we've budgeted for, so we could probably work it into our current, what's been budgeted for Ecom for the next 4 years before seeing an actual impact beyond what we were already budgeting for.
Okay, so as you know, the mayors of the South Island spoke vehemently to the minister and in the public about Ecom. Now Ecom's been forced on us, and now we have sequalary actions. We've got potentially a service fee from one of their partners or former partners. I don't know if there's anything we can do about this, but
Move receipt.
moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And then we've got correspondence regarding the Handy Dart booking system. This is from the town of Sydney and Central Saanich. The councils are asking for recent changes to the service levels of Handy Dart booking system to guarantee the 2 weeks in advance to reserve a drop-off and pickup within 30-minute window to permit persons with disabilities to allow access and not just appointments, but also community participation and inclusion. I think this is a great ask. So that is being sent to the Victoria Regional Transit Commission. So we'll see that when I'm at the BC Transit Commission. We'll see that and see how the discussion unfolds. I'll let you know. Okay. Moved by Councillor Sooke, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. So next on page 121, we have the motion for which notice has been given. At the June 30th special council meeting, Councillor Gray made the following motion that council request a Class D cost estimate to replace the fire hall admin quarters building with an on-site 2-story structure. Councillor Gray, did you want to motivate?
Certainly, thank you. So the title of the note I put out was Fire Hall Renewal Plan B. And I'd like to make a motion that council request a Class D cost estimate to replace the fire hall admin quarters building with an on-site 2-story structure.
This is moved by Councillor Gray. Second by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion.
So I accept that council has decided already to endorse option 1A from the consultant's report to build a new fire hall on the adjacent site to the existing fire hall on the municipal ALR land. But I would like us to get our ducks in a row for a plan B. And I want to thank everyone who wrote in and those who spoke this evening. So as to timing, the idea that I've got is that we get costing done on an alternate option now, so we don't have any further delays if option 1A is abandoned because it turns out to be too expensive, even with a grant from UBCM, if we're successful there. Or if the option 1A fails in a referendum or is blocked by the Agricultural Land Commission. I think it's timely to get the costing now because our existing contract with the Johnson Davidson Architecture exists, and that contract promises the development and analysis of a number of options and costings. The CAO tells me that JDA, that's the architectural firm, is already looking at this option. And we heard at council when the consultant spoke to us that he agreed at least 2 costed options would be fair. Approving this motion now aligns with the discussion of the Fire Hall Steering Committee earlier this week, or I guess it would be last week, as reported to me. Option 1A was described as that only meant as a concept and never intended to be a choice. That the committee says that options other than 1A should be looked at. The committee agreed that the admin quarters building should be replaced. And the committee asked our CEO to figure out the cost to have a seismic upgrade plan developed for the apparatus bay. So just to say, I think this aligns well with the steering committee thinking at the moment. What I want to clarify is that I'm not asking council to select a different option from option 1A at the moment. Rather, I'm asking that we work up a specific plan B option, find out what it would cost to replace the admin quarters building, make best use of the existing contract with the architectural firm and the volunteer time of our volunteer fire hall steering committee. Kind of like a plan B insurance policy in the event option 1A is not sustainable. The motto being, be prepared. So I'll stop there and I can describe a little bit more if you like.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of passionate letters and speakers from the public in the last 3 weeks, I believe. And it's still a lot of people in the community aren't aware of what's really going on. So we will need to get the message out of what we're working on here. The steering committee has been meeting for the last 3 years, approximately twice a year, until recently when we hired a contractor last year. And there was great urgency about a month ago when a grant came available to us, and things moved very, very quickly. A lot of people's emotions got out into the community, and not all the information is available or understood or has been relayed from the steering committee, which I'm one of the liaisons on. So there are numerous concept drawings, as we've got in a package here, that need to be reviewed, and the only one that has been brought out into the public is option 1A. Not sure really exactly where the root of that was, but it's like the biggest, and the place to put it is in a larger space of land, land that a lot of our residents hold dear as green space in the ALR. We know in the past that we have been able to approach the ALC for different pieces and parcels of land, but not to take out a large acreage. We're talking over 4.5 acres, which was in the RFP. So I also would like to listen to all of what the residents have to say, but all of them are not speaking because they don't know. And so to focus just on one thing isn't responsible, obviously. Keeping fiscally responsible is. The original, it was last term that all of this sort of started with looking closer to what to do with the fire hall. We do know part of it is aging. We've done numerous studies on site of where it exists right now, not too much further from that, I wouldn't say building envelope, but space where it exists. At that time, there was discussion about going up on a floor, even going down to a partial basement for storage. There's lots and lots of options to explore. So I am supporting Councillor Gray's motion on this for us to explore a plan B, whatever that is, and to be mindful of our finances. We have been trying to be very careful this term. When we first started, we were faced with paying for policing, and with that, we held back that first year on doing a lot of paving, and we were criticized for that, for crack sealing and patching. And now we've done an assessment, updated our road schedule and that sort of stuff. But you know, this year we got hit with a big bill with e-com. So those sorts of things will come up, and I really would not want to see us deplete our reserves to borrow unnecessarily. to laden the taxpayers with further taxes without doing a fulsome research with either the consultant or our staff on where we are at, what we want to do, what we can do. Right now, we know we have $6 million. We could build a pretty decent admin building, being it's the oldest structure that we have. And we could do that in the near future if we got our plans straight. There may be other grants. We may get some money out of this grant. There are lots of communities in this province that will be seeking this grant as well. So Plan B, looking at it thoroughly, keeping all these factors in our forefront, and what we can do with living in within our own means and preserving what we have. I appreciate being brought to my attention the material that is in the OCP. It's always good for me to go back and read it. It's a very good read. Seeing as it was constructed many years ago, is still very valid today, and a good guiding document for us. I think that while we're planning, we should keep all of those ideas and plans in the forefront as well as we do this. And I'd like to hear what my other colleagues have to say before I get too winded here.
Okay. Councillor yeah, there was references made earlier to past councils, and with all due respect, I know many of those councils did a lot of really great things for Metchosin and kept Metchosin in the situation that we have now, which is a wonderful place to live. However, you know, I do think it's unfortunate that there wasn't more planning and just more thought put into fixing up a fire hall that has been deteriorating for many years, and it's one thing that it is really unfortunate, and also that there was not more funds put away in our building replacement reserves, because as costs have risen, that fund has not kept up with what we're facing with right now. The choice of 1A, I mean, yes, it was a bit rushed because of the grant process, but all it is it's just a step. It's a step in the process of the feasibility study. It's not like we're going to break ground on it as soon as it comes in. I mean, it's just a step. We'll find out from that estimate when it comes in. We'll find out what the square footage will be for a new building. That was the option that JDA chose because it was the most economical and seemed to make the most sense to them. Now, maybe that won't make the sense going down the road. We're going to be having lots of public engagement on this, and we may very well choose a different option. But this is a starting point of getting some costing going and just trying to make sense of what we have looking forward. And I do believe it's important to protect the ALR, but this is our municipal properties are here. We have many buildings on this property that have been given non-farm status. The one we're sitting in now, I mean, I'm not sure, I don't remember it, but it would have been interesting to hear the comments then about building this, and along with a large paved parking lot and a paved driveway all on agricultural land. So I don't know how that played out anyway, but I really think that the comments just kind of jumping the gun. It's this is just a step in the process, and I think as we get more information, starting with what JDA comes up with, that'll give us a really good place to look at all the options that we've got, and it'll give us the idea of how much things are going to cost. We've heard from residents as well as the experts, and that to renovate the bays will cost as much, if not more, than replacing them. So that's something that we really need to think about. In the concept plan that came along, it did state that it would cost probably less than $1 million to renovate the bays. And I do question that, since we haven't got any figures or any information from architects and engineers about that. Because if you think of which they mentioned later, is that maybe a cost of $600 a square foot for a building is probably the reasonable cost. And even just for the 3 truck bays, with the square footage of those 3 bays multiplied by 600 comes up to something like 1.6 million. So, and then the other part in that plan about maybe not needing to have part of the building come up to post-disaster standards, I think it's kind of irresponsible. I think we need to have the safest, if we're going to do it, we need to have the safest building possible. So anyway, I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Sooke.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I do agree that developing a Plan B is a good option. However, at this time, I think we need to be focusing our efforts on developing the option that we chose to go forward, particularly because the Plan B that has been put forward does come with some complexities. I did read the Watson Rand's proposal, and if we're really going into a design, even on a minimal basis, that's going to take time. I really would urge our CAO to make sure, if this motion does not pass, that the architect and the team is focused on developing 1A. Just speaking broadly, I'm really glad, it's really great to see everybody is now on side with developing the admin portion of the fire hall. That need has been known for many years, if not decades. And, there was a report in 2010, there was a report in 2014, and I'll just quote from that. The district's fire hall is in need of urgent replacement and should be made a priority in the capital replacement process. So, I have to say, if folks are concerned with cost, the question we should be asking is, why has it taken us so long to act? And in that time, not only have costs soared, but the building environment has intensified, and also the building code has also become more rigorous. And the big thing is, what I'm seeing is we're about to repeat, if we go down this certain road of only doing the fire hall, we're going to repeat that mistake, because we have now had a closer look at the apparatus bay, and it is not sound. It is not sound. This is from the 2025 report. The seismic capacity of the building is less than half of the current code requirement for post-disaster buildings. The north and the south walls are, and this is where the trucks come in and out, are seen as deficient. And then the roof connections get special mention in this is the Skyline 2025 report. I'll read it to you. The roof diaphragm and connections to the concrete walls of the building are particularly deficient. The capacity of the connection between the roof walls and the ceiling is now estimated to be in the order of 10% of the current code requirements. That building is not set for a long, long life. There are deficiencies there, and I have no hard evidence on this, but I wonder if we cheaped out in 1996. And I'm now wondering if we're on the verge of cheaping out again, only to pass on another problem to residents in the future, and probably not the too distant future. But the big thing too is the extent of the structural upgrades. If we were to upgrade that building, and we will have to, again, it may cost, Councillor Epp mentioned this, as much to upgrade as it will to build new. And again, I'll go back to the 2025 Skyline report. And it says this, the cost of these upgrades, the extent of the structural upgrades to keep the existing apparatus bay as part of a redeveloped fire hall will be extensive due to the increased seismic requirements under the 2024 building code. The cost of these upgrades is anticipated to be significant and could very well approach the cost of a new replacement building serving the same purpose. So I'm interested, and I believe we do need a Plan B, but we need to put our best foot forward in developing 1A for that grant submission. We will have time after that to assess options. But I will not be supporting this motion. I do thank Councillor Gray for bringing it forward, but I'm not able to support it at this time.
Yeah, thank you. I'll speak and then we can go back to second speakers. I agree, and I will speak in opposition to this motion. Regarding the RFP, there was provisions in that RFP for the costing of one option, not all the options. So if we were to ask for costings of the options, we would pay for that. I think the motion's redundant in a way because in the option 1A, we are going to get Class D estimates on the whole site, but including the two-story administration building. So I think we will get those costs. I think this motion is redundant. I think absolutely we need to have more public engagement, and I think in September we'll have an open house. We'll have all of the options that were provided, and there are options there that we could use as a plan B if we are not successful with the grant application. But one thing we don't know, Councillor Donaldson is correct, we don't know if we'll be successful with the grant, but we know for sure if we don't apply for it, we won't get it. One of the reasons why I'm not in favor of the Plan B as proposed is, while we've known for several decades, actually, it's not a number of years, it's several decades, we've known that the administration building was unacceptable and needed to be rebuilt. We've seen minutes from 1987 to 1990 to that effect. So this has been decades in the making. I think it's unwise to plan for an administration building to house decontamination rooms as proposed, washrooms and showers. These decontamination rooms should be separated from the working, eating, and living quarters of the firefighters. And this is according to the principle of red, green, yellow, or hot, warm, and cold. And so this is an architectural approach. I'm not just making this up, it's an architectural approach to contaminant control to protect firefighters from isolating dangerous particles brought back from the station from exposures to fires and biohazards. At its core, this means that including spaces to remove carcinogens from the firefighters' equipment, gear, and bodies as soon as they return to the station, and keep those spaces as far away as the living quarters as possible. And as much like a traffic light, red, yellow, green design concepts draw on color coding of floor plans of fire stations to clearly denote contaminated or red, transition zones, which are yellow, and clean green spaces within the building. The red zones contain spaces most likely to be contaminated, such as the apparatus bay. So that's where it should be. And in Plan 1A, that's where it is in those designs. The yellow zone creates a transition space between the red and green zones where contamination control takes place, and the green zone houses clean spaces for living, eating, and for the administrative spaces. So this is exactly why we go with professionals' opinion, with engineers' designs, with architects who have done many builds of fire halls before, because they know this. And that's why we go with professional opinions as opposed to other plans. As I mentioned, I think the proposed motion is redundant because we will be bringing back those Class D cost estimates for the fire hall, including the two-story administration building. We'll have those costs and the entire Class D estimate costs for the accepted and the proposed option 1A. As noted by Councillor Epp and Councillor Sooke, Skyline Engineering have said that the extent of the structural upgrades to keep the existing apparatus bay as part of the redeveloped fire hall will be extensive and due to increased seismic requirements, and we must build to post-disaster standard. We don't have an option when we do a rebuild. You must build to post-disaster standard and the current BC building codes. So those are my points on that. Regarding the attached concept plan. I take it actually as a huge compliment to both me and to this council, because now others who had the potential to make good decisions regarding the fire hall and didn't, they're now on side. It's a testament to my leadership, your leadership, and to the hard work of the Fire Hall Steering Committee. I'm so pleased that now we can say that we are in agreement that the administration building itself is unsafe and needs to be replaced. I thank the proponents, and everybody in the community is welcome to put forward their comments, no matter their merit or their flaws. And so I'm thankful for that. I have some other comments, but I will yield to others for the time being. Councillor Gray.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there to think about. Thanks so much. I guess the first thing would be, if you turn to the request for proposals 3.1, that the contract includes providing options, plural, and costs, plural, for various building options, plural. We're only at the moment looking at costing for one option. So we do have a contractual arrangement to bring us more options. As I said already, the CEO's been talking to JDA and they're interested in helping out. As regards not having the money in the bank and all that, well, this council here was provided information from a very qualified CFO telling us that our building reserve fund, or sorry, asset replacement funds are short by $672,000, and we have the opportunity this year to put a little bit of money towards that, and we decided not to, so that we'd build up that reserve so we'd be able to manage our assets like our roads and bridges and buildings, but we chose not to do that. So I find it a bit striking when you're criticizing previous councils for what they've done. As regards the issue of the, it's going to cost too much money to reach out to seismically upgrade the apparatus bay. Well, we've been advised by the very same report that you're quoting it, and you didn't choose that quote, Councillor Sooke, through the chair, telling us, go ahead and get the cost. We'll be happy to help you to do that, to let you know. At the moment, we have a variety of opinions to say, gee, maybe it'll cost too much. But we also have before us professional engineers who are prepared to take a look at that for us and advise us about it. But let's just drop back to the question of the proposed motion. As I say, I'm not asking you to choose this option. I just want to get it out there and get the cost for it. I really think the fire department is one of our key assets in our community in all the ways that it serves us. But I'm focused on the admin building itself because that building, the age of the building itself, it's been slated for replacement for years. We got a leaking roof, we got mold, even rats came up the other day. But I'm actually, one of my biggest concerns is the dormitory, the people sleeping in there, and the concern about seismic upgrades there. I don't necessarily agree the building's unsafe. I just think that it's time that we deal with it. This option to get the costing builds on the work already done by the steering committee and our consultant. It's an opportunity to address multiple documented deficiencies of the apparatus bay by decanting programs out of that apparatus bay to a new 2-story post-disaster state-of-the-art admin quarters building. You mentioned it, and the decontamination showers and washroom, the storage of the turnout gear, the general neutral washrooms, the unsafe shelving storage unit, addressing the health and safety issues that are important to, I think, all of us in caring for our firefighters. I appreciate your point about having professionals work on this, Mayor Little, and that's exactly what we're proposing, is that the professionals take a look at it. If the steering committee took this motion forward, they would be talking to the architect and figuring out where to place those things so they're just exactly in the correct hot, warm, or cold areas. That they're in a separate building, I don't think is material. It's rather the distance, as you were describing. Resolving each of those issues, though, and there are many, in other words, the deficiencies that have been pointed out by our consultant, building on his work. If we resolve those issues, it means the outstanding question we've got is the seismic upgrade of the apparatus building and the ventilation. fire chief explained to me that the ventilation is difficult to put in without reinforcements in the ceiling. The proposal means no change in footprint, so the utilities, the drainage, the septic system are already in place and lowers the overall project cost I expect. I think it as an option, it's right sized for our fire department, our community. We had asked the consultant to look at population projections and where we are going as a community. Increased density were the words that in the document we provided them. When I asked the architect, he said they weren't able to do that, but something's got them going on building a fire hall that's almost twice the size of our current fire hall. BC population statistics show us that we can expect a decline in population over the next 20 years, down by several hundred people. So that's the trend, and yet we're building a fire hall for more people, and a denser Metchosin doesn't quite fit well with me. But this option would be more tied to our expected population in the future. The option is also climate friendly. You've heard the words reduce, reuse, recycle. That's what this is about. Preserves the ALR municipal land and the open space in our village core. Otherwise, from my perspective, and I think we heard from people in the audience, it rips at our social fabric of Metchosin. I got the point the last time I asked, well, what will we do for parking? And we'll plan that later. It seems to me that failing to plan is planning for failure. And to lose the important community events that we have, or the support that we have for our farmers market, the Apple Fest, Metchosin Day, garage sale, those are big events, but also the times when people are just out here enjoying the open space here. When I look at our OCP, sections 3, section 7, and the recent OCP amendments that people around this table made around the village core, lots of words in there, but the ALR and the open space in the village core, so we're driving against the OCP. When I asked that question of the chair of the steering committee, they didn't think about what would happen with the loss of that space. You remember that response. In other words, it wasn't part of their calculation in choosing option A, and that's why it comes to council. So it's true a professional wrote this up, Mayor Little, but we're the council. We're the people who take the experts review, and then we put our own spin to it and try and figure out how's that fit. In this case, I'm thinking about being fiscally or financially prudent with a no debt option, use our current reserves, apply for grants, avoid a referendum. As someone mentioned, a plan B if we did it now, which I'm not advising we do because we've already committed to something else. We'd probably get this thing completed in very short order. So for all those reasons, I put the motion on the table. I think it's also relevant for the community to know that the CFO reported to us in March that we've got significant challenges funding future operations without cuts to services or substantial tax increases or additional revenue sources. He also reported on our reserves. I've mentioned it already. We're $672,000 just to keep upkeep of our current buildings. And on the horizon, we've got the new police building we have to pay for in Langford. And there's new investments going to be called for at Waterview Rec Center. So my notion is, boy, we got some financial issues here. What can we do? Live within our budget, get a really fine new buildings for our fire department, supporting them in that way. And I see it as a two-step process as laid out in my note. Let's get the admin building dealt with, and then let's get look at the apparatus bay. I think getting a price on the seismic upgrade apparatus bay would make a lot of questions go away. You guys are asserting that it's too expensive. I'd like to know what the numbers are. I'd like to have an informed decision, and I think we owe it to our community to find out what it'll cost to replace the admin building, find out what it'll cost to seismically upgrade the apparatus bay, and leave the ALR field alone and work with what we've got.
Okay, Councillor Sooke.
I don't disagree with many of Councillor Gray's points, and I am supportive of a plan B and looking at that, not at this time though, and moving toward completing option 1A and getting that grant application in. So just, again, I just don't disagree with some of the points Councillor Gray is raising. So,
Councillor Gray, will let other people speak before you speak for the third time, okay?
Certainly.
And anybody else wish to speak?
Just one comment about the 1% you had proposed to bulk up our reserves. I think it is a good idea. I think it came right at the very, very end of the budget process. I think if it comes up again more toward the beginning, it probably has a good chance of being supported.
Councillor Donaldson, did you want to weigh in?
I just wanted to say in regards to Councillor Sooke's comment with the Skyline report, this 2025 report was pretty much the same as the previous one, although Mr. Ryder had commented on what the consultant had already reported on. And in both of his reports, he had not come on site to actually look at the bays, which is why in his paragraph close to the end, he says, you may wish to have a more detailed schematic seismic upgrade plan prepared with sufficient detail. This is something we do not have. We don't have detail of it. We don't have costs. We have professional opinions. That's all we have. And so there's a lot of things. We don't have a lot of costs, or these are things that have actually been asked at the Fire Health Steering Committee as well. There were 4 action items in the March meeting to go to staff so that the committee could be seen by the public as turning over the stone to say that we've done our due diligence to see that there's a cost, that if it's cost prohibitive or not, for all the probabilities or possibilities, or maybe none of those, that they did their due diligence in flushing out the information, which still has not come forward in a fulsome manner because of this interlude of a grant opportunity, which has its blessings and its misgivings, because it's really interrupted the process of where we really need to go with this. But this report, Skyline report, if this professional is saying you may want to do this, and you've got people on a committee saying we should turn over this rod just so we know, because this also allows us at this table to make a more informed decision, to be able to then inform our public where their tax dollars are going to be invested. And this is an investment. It's not just, I don't want us to be willy-nilly throwing money away. We do need to be responsible with uncovering this information. I am not an expert. I am learning, and I will never know all of this, because I do not have the education for it. This is why we hire people to do it, but not just based earlier on in our term when one of our staff asked to proposal, and there was one error in it, in that the population was more than the 5,067. And I remember Mayor Little, you saying you must put the accurate information in there. And it always kind of resonated with me, as minute as that detail is. It brings me back to where we are now, applying for a grant for this 16,000 square foot building that's going in possibly in an area that is against our OCP. To me, those are, and then I'm hearing now that, well, maybe it might not be there, maybe it will be on the same site. So we need to be accurate when we're applying for that grant. We need to know exactly what that information is going on. I don't know if the grant people are going to hold our hands to it. I don't know if they're policing it, but we need to be very careful when we're applying for this grant. The information we put out there is the information that is applicable to what we're asking and what the grant for is hoping we would invest the money in if we are successful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so there were another number of misstatements made earlier. I am in favor of repurposing the current apparatus bay for another option for search and rescue, something, a purpose that doesn't require the post-disaster standard CO. So I am in favor of repurposing that building. It was built in 1994 and could have some use. At the very least, it could be used for storage, but certainly more purposeful outcomes for that, for repurposing it. All of us care about the firefighters. All of us have stated that we care about the welfare of the firefighters and also the members of our community who rely on the firefighters. Regarding the ventilation, the fire chief has worked with WorkSafe to figure out options in the meantime for that, and I understand there are more conversations going on with WorkSafe BC. We would have to relocate the fire department or the fire hall staff from that accessory building, and that would be a significant cost. We do not have to pay for the new police building. We don't know if it's going to be in Langford or Colwood. We're renters. We're not owners of that, so we're not responsible for the police building that has been proposed. Detailed plans for the renovation of the apparatus bay will mean detailed plans. I mean, there's significant costs upwards to $200,000 for detailed architecture plans. And so we're early in the process. We had quite a bit of discussion at this table, along with a fire hall steering committee at this table to discuss this. We talked about the lack of space and that the building, the apparatus bay is undersized for today's equipment, and the building does not provide the clearance necessary for modern vehicles. We talked about the seismic risk and the disaster preparations and about the BC Building Code when it changed in 2006, requiring the emergency services buildings, if undergoing major repairs or being newly constructed, be built to this post-disaster standard. And the current building has a long list of structural, mechanical, electrical, and operational deficiencies. The current fire hall is at risk of collapse in a seismic event. This raises concerns about how the emergency services could be provided to our community if something were to happen with the currently outdated and fragile facility. I've mentioned the BC building codes. Certainly we have to take into consideration the safety, the public and the firefighter safety should of course be our priority number one. Engineering reports confirm the inadequacy of the existing fire hall. It's worn out, too small for the amount of people and equipment that it must accommodate. And unlike today's situation, a modern fire hall for volunteers and paid staff will conform to the WorkSafe BC regulations for proper work conditions and allow the new provincial training standards to be met, such as proper hazmat procedures and enough space to clean the potentially contaminated gear. I've mentioned workspace. There is operational issues as well. There's significant operational weaknesses that are evident in the current apparatus bay. Of course, the decontamination, the dedicated storage area for cleaning, the first aid supplies, the small training space, deficient fire sprinkler systems, leaky roof, inclusive washrooms, accessibility, the list goes on. And what we're doing is planning for today and planning for the future. The current District Metchosin Volunteer Firefighter Department is ready and able to respond to all types of emergencies, and we want to make sure they can continue to do this. I just think it's not responsible to renovate the existing structures for the purpose that we want them for, but I don't think that's feasible. It would be cost prohibitive and it's expensive given all the deficiencies. Repurposing the existing base structure, as I mentioned, for another use is certainly a feasible option. We do have climate challenges as well. Let's see. And we've been told time and time again that the biggest threat to Metchosin is fire. So we need to have a proper and safe administration building and an apparatus bay that's built to post-disaster standards. And of course, we need to be fiscally responsible. We do have some in reserve, not as much as we would have liked for the number of years that this has been discussed, but it is what it is. we hope to get the grant. Certainly with applying for the grant, we're going to be getting the costing from the architect. That will also inform us. I have no idea what that's going to be, and that will inform us whether we need to pivot, and I will certainly be open to that. And unlike others, I'm not afraid of Metchosin going into a small debt. We're not talking about what Victoria, the CRD, is doing. We're talking about a few $1,000,000. I think it is wise that we've collected fees, we've collected taxes from people that live in the community now and before, and people that will be benefiting from the service in terms of the fire hall, the new fire hall going forward, will be paying into that, not only in the debt, but also in their taxes. So I'm less uncomfortable with that than others, but that's just my opinion. So we've known for decades that the administration building is unacceptable. I'm glad that that conversation has come to a close. We've all agreed that we need a brand new administration building. We've certainly got many questions to be answered. We're early in the process. All I ask is that we've put forth a motion to choose option 1A. That's what they're asking in the grant application. They're not asking what kind of programs do you want? Do you want a fire safety program? This is about infrastructure. They're asking for one option, cost estimates. They're asking very specific things about that. And I ask that we let that go through. The Fire Hall Steering Committee will be still engaged when we get some of those answers back, and we'll go forth in the process. Councillor Gray.
Thanks so much for that response to the motion I put forward. I'm struck by most of the issues you laid out would be addressed by chasing down the costing on getting this admin building changed and getting the apparatus space size and complete upgraded. Just through the chair to Councillor Epp, it was December 5th when we were told that we should be adding money to our reserves, and we chose not to do that. It seems to me the past councils have actually done a pretty good job. If you look at it, using JDA's numbers, 5,000 square foot post-disaster admin building would be 3 million. We got 3.48 in our reserve for building replacement. So, gee, that's pretty nice to see. We could go for a grant to go a little bit more. And then we got what turns out now to be $2.66 million in the Growing Community Fund. I expect that would be more than adequate to deal with the apparatus pay, even not having numbers in front of me. We've kicked around a bunch of ideas about dollars and cents, but all I'm asking is that we have some professionals let us know what it would cost, so we wouldn't be just working blind and say, "Oh, that's too much. We'll do the really expensive thing instead." Instead of what exactly? So knowing it would be good. With regards to the mention of through the chair to Councillor Sooke and being cheap, I mean, I want us to be smart with our money, and that's not being cheap. It's being cost effective with what we've got. So I guess we're left in the situation. I can see that I haven't convinced others of what we're putting out here. There's another thing that fits with this proposal, and that is what Councillor Sooke mentioned at our last meeting, was that or second to last meeting, significant governance and management issues with this project that we haven't addressed. So you raised the issue, Councillor Sooke, and then we met with the steering committee, but this is an enormous project. And it's clearly outside the scope of the day-to-day work of our CAO. He's got a huge amount of work to do right now, and this is a monstrous project. At the moment, we're guessing $10 million. Our annual budget, if I just might ask through the chair to our CFO, our annual budget is?
Our operating budget's about $7 million.
Through the chair, yeah, 7 to 8. That's with the amortization in there.
$8 million. This project itself is worth $10 million at the moment. Well, if we think it could be more than that, of course, we'll see when the material comes back from JDA. But we have this really big project. I think it needs really careful project management and cost management, like a project manager, professional person to help the CAO with this job. I think it's too much to expect from volunteers with appreciation for all that they do. And I'd like us to think about that. That we received at the end of June was to receive our desks in October. So that's October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, 7 months late. And now we're jammed into this decision-making. At this point, we're chasing a grant. That's what we're doing, rather than saying, what do we need? And having JDA complete their work. Wouldn't that have been nice if they'd completed their work and then came to us and said, look, we'd like this costing done in the following options. Instead, we've driven into this idea, we got a grant. And so here's where we are.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, all I can say is that we're involved in the process. Nothing is cut in stone as is. We do not have shovels in the ground. We will continue with the costing as you've requested. For the one option, we'll be able to extrapolate from that the cost of the two-story admin building like you've asked, except for that it wouldn't include to accommodate various program deficiencies associated with the existing apparatus bay, decontamination, washroom and showers. That's the administration building.
Maybe you could clarify. I thought the option that we're looking at, option 1A, is a single building.
I think it's a two-story building. Perhaps we can turn to the fire chief.
Yeah, I think they're two different things. I'm not sure we can extrapolate between one and the other, but I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Yeah, let's turn to the fire chief. Option 1A, is that not a two-story?
Yes, as far as I know, it's two-story on the one side with the new apparatus bay.
Yeah. I can double check, but I'm quite not.
Let's just agree we'll see whatever the architect and the steering committee and the CEO decide they can bring to us.
Yeah, so option 1A is a two-story administration quarters, parking, and then the new bay area and a small area, and I can't read the writing actually, but it is a two-story admin building.
What I'm interested in, of course, is a two-story building built to purpose to deal with the deficiencies. But as you were saying, I think you were pointing out in your reading of the document, many of these issues, decontamination, showers and washrooms, storage of turnout gear, gender neutral washrooms, would be in the apparatus space. So it won't be quite a equal comparison, but thanks for the point.
No, actually the preferred option is a two-story admin building. The decontamination facilities are all in the apparatus bay at the spine, not as you in this Plan B proposal to have it within the administration building. We want to keep those separate.
Understood. And that's why I'm saying not comparable.
Yeah, but why would we build something that is not to standards of the day and to best practices?
Well, I don't want to keep going back and forth, but the proposal is that it be built to current standards entirely. So why don't we just leave that be? That's the proposal tonight, to cost a building that would be built to posted standards, state of the art.
Okay.
we're choosing not to do that and proceeding with a different
Yeah, that's
option.
fine. I was just reading from your document, from your motion. Okay, so does anybody else have any comments? With that, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Councillor Gray and Councillor Donaldson in favor, all opposed. Councillor Sooke and Councillor Epp, Mayor Little opposed. That motion fails. Okay, so let's move on to other business. On page 127, we have the Duke Road line painting. This is a time-sensitive request from Councillor Sooke.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Little, and to council as well for entertaining this. I'll give you some backstory. We have been meeting with our consulting engineer from Westbrook, and I think it was in early February. There was a site visit done by the subcommittee that PTASC has with the engineer, and at that point, the engineer identified a possible option for pedestrian safety to improve it, was to reorient the lines, recenter the traffic lines to allow for a wider shoulder on Duke Road East. So what you would end up doing is you would move the center line either to the left or to the right, depending on what section of the street you were on. And that would allow you to actually have anywhere between a 1 meter and a 1.5 meter shoulder. Now, I will throw out one proviso. The end of Duke Road East actually does have already, the road is quite narrow there, so the last 70 meters is likely to not apply to this, but there are already 3 meter roads there. So with doing this, again, you end up with a wider walkable shoulder. And there are opportunities on Duke Road to utilize that wider shoulder very effectively. And as the goal that PTASC had was that we were going to look at a roadside trail there. And there are some features that lend themselves to that roadside trail, and there are some other features that will make a roadside trail very, very challenging, and we've come to understand that. This is a solution that will take us almost to the bottom of Duke Road East, to the top where Duke Road East meets Metchosin Road, and also connects with Latory Creek Bridge and Far Hill Road as well. And now I have requested $38,000. However, there are already pockets of money that are available, either for painting or from the budget that council allowed for this special project, and also from the Trails Capital Improvement budget. And if I could, Mr. Creek, one thing I have to say, I want to thank Mr. Creek for helping with this project. It came together very quickly last week. Mr. Creek put together some numbers as best he could, and I just want to check with him in terms of how much remains from the budget allocated from the Duke Road project, and also other amounts that may qualify or we may consider appropriate for this amount.
Thank you, through the chair. So the 6,665 is actually 9,860 after talking with Westbrook about their building for Duke Road. And then based on what we spent so far this year on road marking, based on the budget from last year, what we're going to be doing for road patching this year, should have roughly $15,000 in that budget that can be allocated to this project as well. And then if there's any extra kind of needed, we can take it out of the gas tax if necessary, since it wouldn't actually impact taxes for this year, next year.
Great, thank you, Mr. Reed. Sorry, just a few more points. The amount requested here is not only for the painting of the roads for the wider shoulders, but also the removal of the center line. So what happens when you do this, you have the option of painting over the center line, but apparently during rainstorms, that paint will show up and will be confusing. So the request here is for the grinding to make it thorough, so the painting stands by itself and is clear. So, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Epp.
Well, for me, this process has been quite frustrating. Last year, my understanding was that we were going to use part of Duke Road East and create walkable shoulders, and part of it as a pilot project, following the guidelines set out in the BC Active Transportation guidelines. However, that for one reason and another, that didn't happen. This year, it was my understanding again that it was to go ahead as we had previously planned. However, it got stalled. So I'm glad to hear that there is $15,000 at least left in the budget, because it seems to me that since we discussed this, that this type of thing should have been included in the line painting budget along the way, so we were ready for it. I kind of wonder why it wasn't. And I was actually like to ask, if I could, the CAO, why we've sort of been talking about this for a couple of years, but that it wasn't, what was the reason that no funds got included in the budget for this project?
I do not know. Through the chair, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering. But at any rate, I would support this, because I think it's a really important. It's a good way to start. It's really a relatively inexpensive way to create a safer walking and rolling route along the side of a very busy road, in comparison to actually constructing, as you mentioned, the roadside trails, which would be a really expensive endeavor. And if it works out that way along that section of Duke Road East, then possibly we can put that into effect on Duke Road West and other places where the road is busy and there's not much room on the shoulders to walk or roll.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. A couple of questions I need just for clarification. So why is it that we would be moving the center line first? I'm just trying to figure out the configuration of the center line, because I know when I've seen it, I know one lane is quite wide. Is it that we want to center the whole thing more, and then we have walkability on both sides?
We're moving the center line to create 2 3-meter lanes and give one side of Duke Road East the wider shoulder. So it would be one side.
Okay, and so with that one side, is it wide enough for cycling as well?
It is. The focus is going to be on walking. That will be another stage of this process too, is just make sure we have adequate signs to understand and help people understand what the intention of the shoulder is. So.
Okay, the reason I asked that is we just talked about this last week about when we do paving, to put a little bit more pavement out there for rolling. And I think coming off of Metchosin Road, where it does a lot of esterns coming through Duke, would have been a better passageway. So to consider that, it deals with two things. Also, is this something, what is the urgency to do this right now, specifically this month?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. It's a great question. And the urgency is not so much to do it right now, but it's to get it in a timely manner. And the key thing in terms of the haste of this is there was a realization that we were not going to be able to meet. The next committee of the whole is not until late October 20th, and then there's a mid-September council meeting. So with all of that, if we wait those months, we're likely not to get this work in. I have to say I'll confess there's a bit of impatience on the PTASC side to actually do something in terms of roadside safety here. So that is one of the drivers, I would say.
Okay, so the reason I ask is we will be starting budget time again earlier this year. It'll be in October. And also, as you heard me comment earlier, 2015 is when I first came to council saying, safe passage for pedestrians and cyclists and horse riders and stuff like that. So it's been a long time waiting for just the core to be safe. I empathize with the Duke Road neighborhood. I'm just wondering if we could put this into the budget, or as we've just passed, into an ATNP grant.
to be covered off.
I personally, I'm going to make the motion here shortly, but I would like to test and move ahead with this. I mean, it's something we could look at, but I'm committed to seeing if this motion will pass and we can move ahead with this fairly quickly. The one thing I would just say though is again, 38,000, but there is existing pots of money that are appropriate for this that we have and will likely not use this year. So again, $20,000 from the trails capital budget that would be applied to this. So, yeah.
Okay.
But
So let's talk about questions and concerns. We can talk about the motion afterwards. We'll give you that opportunity. Councillor Gray, go ahead. Oh, Councillor Donaldson, did you finish? Okay. Councillor Gray.
I just wondered if we could hear through the chair how much we spent on the Duke Road East Trail so far. I think there was a survey done and now engineering costs and perhaps there are other costs.
Yeah, CFO Creek, do you have those figures at hand? Yep, just a minute.
Okay.
If you can just give a minute,
Okay.
he's looking it up.
Thanks, Mr. Creek. I think it was 15,000 for the survey, but I don't want to give the wrong number. The engineer, I don't know. I'm finding it a bit difficult just because you've got another one of these crunch time things. We got to decide tonight, but the schedule of painting has been known for quite a long time. I was expecting that after the engineer became involved, that there would be a report that would lay out, what are we doing? And I heard rumor of line painting. We talked about line painting, as Councillor Epps properly said a year ago. I thought we missed it and would just be done this year. And now to see a bill makes me wonder, just as Councillor Epps is wondering. I'm curious about the use of the gas tax, because we just talked about the fire hall and option 1A, and we're talking about using the gas tax there. We quite potentially. So we can't spend that money twice. I know this is just a small dollop compared to the fire hall, but we've got to start restricting our spending if we're going to proceed with option 1A. The other thing that I'm curious about is, we have another project, trails project, the Weir's Beach Trail. It started at 15,000, went to 19,000, and now it's busted apart at the bottom, and we have to spend money to fix that still. So are we taking from that $20,000? Don't we need some of that money to fix the Weir's Beach Trail? I haven't heard what we're doing on that lately, and I don't know about whether we've got the provincial permit for the shoreline work there. But maybe most importantly, I've lost track of what's going on with this project. That may be my fault, but we had a phase 1, which I took to be the one that we do first, which was at the bottom end of the trail. Then a phase 2, the midpoint, and then phase 3, well, we might or might not do something. Now, without a report or anything, we're jumped to phase 3, putting the line painting in there, and it sounds like maybe phase 2 and phase 1 are still alive. Like, what are we, and it's come on us, we got to do it now. Can we get just a bit clarity about what's going on with the project writ large? Here's phase 1. Are we going to get a new bill for phase 1, another bill for phase 2, and then pay this for phase? What's the total cost of this project? Or are we abandoning phase 1 and 2 in favor of phase 3? What order, or is this phase 1 and phase 1 is now phase 3, or how are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, Councillor Sooke, could you clarify some of these?
So the Duke Road East project was divided into 3 phases, beginning from the lower portion all the way to the top. Phase 1 is the area from, again, Lower Metchosin to Chapel Heights Drive. Phase 2 is to, I believe it's Dutnell, and then to Metchosin Road. We've been focused on doing a trail for phase 1. We're still getting some information from the engineer as to whether that's possible. It may not be possible in terms of an appropriate cost. But this project will actually cover a large portion of phase 1, 2, and 3. And that's why it's exciting to be able to allow for that wide walkable shoulder. And there are some very narrow, like existing shoulder lines, if you will, fog lines along the street. So that we have the potential to change that with this project. Yeah, you're not wrong, Councillor Gray. We haven't been able to provide a ready update on this, and part of it is there's still some there's some things still up in the air. This, as we looked at it, seemed to be the answer to so many things and the ability to take some decisive steps toward improving traffic safety. And it's almost a year now since we had the meeting here, the community information session on July 31st. And what was striking about that meeting is everybody talked about the need for improved safety. And I didn't hear a single person run down the idea of a trail, but more so they wanted us to look at, again, broader safety improvements. The one thing I will say, though, is narrower lanes there have been some studies that have shown that narrower lanes are actually a benefit in terms of safety. There was a John Hopkins study that was done actually fairly recently, and the research is right. Drivers are less concerned about the speed limit and more concerned about the context of the street in determining their driving speed. So in other words, on streets that are busier, have trees, pedestrians, a bike lane, and bikes, drivers feel less safe driving fast and will drive slower regardless of the speed limit. So there's some good research out there that narrower lanes actually do work. So again, I thank you for your tolerance of this. Again, a late and sudden motion, I do agree. I'd certainly be happy to bring more information back to council in terms of the actual layout of this. There will be some intricacies around this in terms of going from one side to the other. So,
if we were to bring this back to the September 14th meeting, that's too late? With more information? No, okay. You prefer not? Okay. Turn your microphone on.
Sorry, ideally some of the wheels will be in motion tonight, but again, I'll do my best to, it's up to the will of council here. But Mr. Payette, what are your thoughts in terms of doability if we brought this back in September?
I heard today that the painting company goes back to the mainland at a certain date, and they're done for the year, so likely that would be too late. But I mean, in fairness, we don't really have the design figured out yet from the engineer for the painting, so that would take time anyway, so I'm not sure how long that'll take. And we are in the summer, it's hard to get work done.
And I also wanted to ask, surely we'll have to put some signage up regarding traffic calming measures are now in place, or it's not a traffic pattern change, but it's traffic something change. So do you envision signage as well in that area?
Yeah, signage would be very important as well.
Okay, Councillor Gray.
I don't know if I heard properly. Somebody mentioned to me, just that the engineer was working with PTASC. I guess that was the information. But they seem to be imagining there would be the path would go down one side of the street and then maybe cross over to the other side of the street, and that there need to be crosswalks. Is that also part of the painting of the lines? Is that painting, or do we paint? Might there be crosswalks needed to be painted? Yeah, we did see a budget number for a crosswalk. In all honesty, it is not included here. So, if I can make a motion, I do recognize the point that more information is likely needed here, Okay, if I could, why don't I bring this back in September, and ideally with more information, and we'll factor in the crosswalk, and we'll also and maybe come to some further clarity on the on the budget numbers as well. So,
and to be clear, this came from the Parks and Trails committee.
Yeah, sorry, one correction, Mayor Little, it came from the subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is the Parks and Trails Committee meeting anytime soon?
They may be meeting in August. We haven't determined that yet.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It'd be great to get the whole committee's input on this
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And the other question that I had was, so the request is for 38. Could you go over the numbers again? The request is for 38. We have 66 remaining from the approved allocation for the Duke Road East project. Then we have 20,000 from the capital for the Parks and Trails budget. And the remaining.
So sorry, just to, I think we have $9,000 from the existing budget for Duke Road East. Then we have 20,000 from the Parks and Trails capital budget that has been unused as yet, and there's no project that's been put forward for that allocation. And then road marking, the existing road marking budget, as Mr. Creek said, there's likely going to be an amount of 15,000. So 9 plus 20 plus 15.
Okay, so there's more than we need than the 38, right?
Yes. Yeah. Trying to do 44. And it's up to 44.
Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, a complete breakdown would be really good to understand what money's spent, what money's needed, what's going to be painted. Will you need delineators? I suspect you probably will, where there might be a curve as a traffic calming. Seems how that is the practice in our community. We have quite a few areas like that. And I really would like to have input from the committee, not just your subcommittee. That's usually the subcommittee goes to the committee, so that would be of value as well. And if there isn't urgency and we can build it into the budget or a grant, but I mean, if the money has already been budgeted for and it's covered and it's not being asked for another 40 grand, I understand that. I just, right now, there's so many numbers going around. So what you figured and what I figured are not the same. So a clear understanding would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone for again considering this in a bit of a rushed manner, but I understand the perspective. So,
yeah, thank you for bringing it forward. Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
And just to add, there's a pink from Jeanette McMillan on the topic as well, asking for a particular paint.
Yeah, did you address that in your earlier comments regarding Jeanette McMillan's comments regarding the south portion?
I did see it, and it's worth a closer look for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Creek was just digging out some numbers for us on what we spent already on Duke Road East Trail.
Yep, through the chair. So it was, I believe, as you mentioned before, 11,965 in 2024, and then so far we spent $10,340 this year, so 22,315.
And then if I could ask, so that would be 10,340 for the engineer's work. And he's continuing to work. So when we come back, maybe we can get an update on what the cost is from now till then. So we got a full costing. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for bringing forward PTASC subcommittee's recommendations. Okay, where are we here?
Pinks.
The pinks, yes. Okay, so we've got correspondence from the PTASC recommendations, permissive tax exemption, and the fire hall feasibility study. We've got a letter from Mr. Owen Clark with 2 pages of information. Many of it was covered. His concerns regarding ALR finances in the RFP. And then Jeanette McMillan's correspondence regarding proposed changes to the line painting. She just wants us to remember that it winds down to the south portion of the road. There's a sharp blind corner, and the corner is where the current off-road trail starts. It's a dangerous corner, and caution regarding line painting there. So maybe you can take that back with you, Councillor Sooke. Okay, it's past 9:30. Sorry to keep you here so long, council, but I have a motion to adjourn. Moved by Council Shukin, seconded by Council Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.